The UN climate chief is demanding action after Hurricane Beryl devastates his home country of Grenada. Simon Still, head of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, talks to Christian Amanpour about how he found himself at the center of the very crisis he's trying to solve. Here's part one.
You're in Grenada, which is basically home to you. What did Beryl do to that area?
Carriacou is my home. This is where my family are. This is where my family lives. And just returning to see the level of devastation is absolutely heartbreaking, Christian. Just to see the brutality, the violent devastation that Beryl imposed on this very, very tight-knit communities. Just to see twisted, mangled homes, infrastructure, vegetation. I mean, it was almost apocalyptic.
I mean, even here you are, the UN climate official, and you couldn't even speak to family, right? You were disconnected at the height of Beryl because so much of the infrastructure and connections were wiped out.
It took 24 hours before we actually received contact from those closest to us. I had an aunt. It was 3 days before they were able to cut their way through the vegetation to find her alive in her home. But it was a period of great anguish, waiting to hear from loved ones and knowing they were safe. There were lives lost. So far, the death count is 6 lives lost. But when you see the level of devastation, 98% of buildings, of property either destroyed or damaged.
So Simon, how do you think islands like Grenada, those who are worst hit, I mean, you know, we're not talking about rich nations, they're Caribbean islands, they're vulnerable. How does your island there, how does it rebuild?
Governments in these vulnerable developing countries can only do so much themselves. They have such limited fiscal space. They're heavily debt burdened. They don't have the financial means to continue to borrow and borrow to rebuild just for what they've rebuilt to be destroyed again by another climate-related disaster. So the only way countries, islands such as Carriacou, such as those others that have been impacted now, can get through this is through international support, through international cooperation. These are the same voices of other vulnerable communities all around the world.
Precisely.
We've just heard recently, we've heard in India, thousands of deaths due to extreme heat. 1,300 died recently in the Hajj to Mecca. We've had in Kenya, they've gone from years of debilitating drought that's decimated its agricultural sector, from drought to severe floods, again, costing dozens of lives, hundreds of millions displaced. And just 2 years ago, a third of Pakistan was underwater. Again, thousands lost their lives, millions displaced. And closer to your audience, North America, Canada, wildfires, again, decimating vast land masses, southern Europe. What we're seeing here are the devastating impacts of climate change affecting every region, every country, from the richest to the poorest.
The question is, are we moving forward to combat climate change, or is it one step forward, several steps back? I mean, put it into context then, because it can't be just bailing out a country every time something like this happens. That's not sustainable.
We are moving forward, and the global stocktake that concluded in COP28 in Dubai last year highlighted progress made, but the clear message is not enough is being done, and what is being done is not being done fast enough.